No mai, haere mai ki Aotearoa Rugby Pod. Welcome to the Aotearoa Rugby Pod, brought to you by Ashley and Martin Medical Hair Centres. We have heaps for you this week. With 4 weeks to go in the round robin of Super Rugby, nothing is guaranteed. The Chiefs blew a chance to take the lead on the weekend, and the Crusaders now have the chance to get in the box seat. The battle for the last couple of playoff spots is as epic as it's ever been, and there are so many talking points today. Are the Crusaders in the box seat? We'll delve into the Chiefs' chances against the Crusaders and how turnovers are killing them. Speaking of which, the Ashley and Martin Turning Point features the Canes and how they put the Chiefs to the sword in that second half. There's Ardie Savea's epic performance as MP made history in Dunedin, as well as the panic that almost cost them. Jip has jumped on the analysis tool again on quick taps and when teams are turning to penalty kicks at the business end. Plus, our special guest today is Black Ferns co-captain Ruahei Demant, one of the most impressive people you'll meet in rugby, period. You'll see why the Black Ferns followed her to a World Cup title. And as always, the picking comp, your emails and comments. We also tell you who the winner of our Rugby Ready prize is as we team up with All Blacks trainer Dr. Nick Gill to give you the chance to win memberships and ebooks to train with the best in the business on your health and fitness. Stick around for that entry code for your chance to win this week's prize later in the show. And of course, joining me on the show today as ever, James Parsons, Jipper, looking resplendent, the perfect shade of...
Oh, yeah, you know... Tom wanted to get on the Eden Park bandwagon, so he gave me the all clear, so I'm joining the boys.
Nice. And after a win on the weekend too, you know.
Yeah, well, it's a start. It's one step in the right direction.
They're on their way, of course, coming out of Japan. Bryn Hall, whose Crusaders now look like they're probably in the box seat, Brenna.
Hey, it's been nice, Ross. Just us being under the radar, mate, and going under the radar. So, no, look, it has an opportunity's kind of come through with, I guess, the Chiefs with that little hiccup, but it's going to be a great game this week. There's a lot on the line, and not only that, but there's a lot on the line in terms of the backing of this competition, which has been great for, I guess, our spectators and punters to be able to see it.
The Crusaders have had their bye. They've got 4 games to go. They're sitting on 37 points. So if they can beat the Chiefs at home, the Tars away, the Landers at home, and the Brumbies away, let's say they take 3 of those, they get up to 49 points. The Chiefs, in comparison, they've got a tougher go. They've got the Crusaders away, a bye, Moana Pacifica at home, and the Landers away. So they will only end up with a maximum of 12 and probably maybe 8.
This is a big week, I think, for the Chiefs, and I suppose the big thing is will or won't Damien McKenzie play?
Yeah, they can't afford for him not to in some ways.
You've got to back your squad, but he clearly is a big part of, I suppose, their success on attack, keeping the ball alive, building phases and making the right decisions under pressure. And we saw on the weekend the error count be so high that if we've seen throughout the year when the Chiefs have had a dip, it's all around their skill execution on attack. We know they can defend, the strong defenders, but it was where they were making those errors that were putting them under pressure.
Bryn, where do you see that coming from? Because it's happened in the past, hasn't it?
Well, look, I just think it comes down to a bit of pressure. I think, look, the Hurricanes played really well, and we'll touch on a little bit of why I guess they've had a bit of a resurgence with the selection of a few players coming back. But, yeah, I think defensively, the Hurricanes put them under a lot of pressure. You're 90% they tackled at. And, look, they actually had like 16 dominant tackles to 5 dominant tackles for the Chiefs. So, in terms of that physicality and breakdown, they were good in around the tackle area. But I think 23 turnovers, I can't remember who they lost, their last game that they lost against, but it was very similar in terms of the high error count that kind of led to that loss. So I think if you're Cater McMillan and you're probably the other teams in the competition, if you can get them to a high error rate, it seems like they're not able to be able to, find solutions to be able to get them right on the day. So they had 14 turnovers in the first half, which is massive, and then only 9 in the second. But I guess the high turnover rate against the Hurricanes team, who I thought played really, really well, Ruben Love, Riley Higgins, and I think Billy Proctor, that combination has been really nice the last couple of weeks. So, and I think Harkin as well. No doubt we'll talk about the turning point with Harkin, they're 50-22. But I think, the Hurricanes put them under that pressure to where they're able to have 23 turnovers, which is far too much for the Chiefs in that game.
And if you look at the week before, 10 turnovers. So, and you saw the tries they scored. There has probably been a slight increase since daylight saving, just because playing a lot dewier conditions earlier. That has probably increased a little bit, but that's a big that's a big jump.
Yeah,
like 13 extra turnovers and 14 in the first half when they had 10 over 80 minutes. It just impacts your flow and I suppose your confidence to execute. But there is always an increase against a defensive system like the Hurricanes. Like they do run that rush D, and it is designed to put you under pressure to try and force passes. And that's where someone like Damian McKenzie normally has a gift of using the boot or through the pass or just running himself. The yellow card is where they picked up a lot of their wins, and that was where probably the game was won or lost.
Yeah, that was pretty difficult. Let's go to the Ashley and Martin turning point then. We look at that 50-22, right, from Harkin. That was a massive moment in the game.
Yeah, and you almost feel like when it happened, I said to the people I was watching it with, it's like, you just always get the sense it's their day when something's that fine a margin. It could have gone, a little bounce to the right and it goes dead. But from there, they obviously went on to score, but that almost grew their confidence. And the way they manipulated the backfield with Sean Stevenson in the bin was just second to none. And that period, the way Ruben Love really came to life, and I suppose the voices and the communication that was coming from the outside, that sort of access when we looked going into the game, everyone was like, oh, Jacobs, Stevenson, Love, Harkin, probably a little less unknown. And, Jacobs had a lot of success, shooter. But, man, they were just so clinical. And I think Ruben's really put his hand up as a genuine first five option at the next level. When and if it presents itself, I still think he's probably more the back three at international level, but he's a genuine contender. Like, he won that game alongside Harkin, the way they drove that team.
When you look at losing a fullback, like we don't often see fullbacks get cards like that. But actually, you talk a lot about the pendulum. It's quite a huge position to lose based on the way the game is played now in comparison to if, you lose a loose forward, well, someone else can cover in tight, right? But having all that space at the back.
Yeah, absolutely. Like those two tries were massive in terms of, I guess, what you touched on with the pendulum, They probably almost should have gone a little bit earlier for the first one with Ruben Love. If you actually look, and there is an angle that is shown, I think the last defender, the winger, is inside the second post. So, obviously they found a way to get it there through the advantage and the pressure from the line out more. But the second one I really, really enjoyed because, there is no fullback, and whether there was a little bit of communication in terms of who should have been covering it in that situation with Sean being off and Xavier Rowe filling into that line, who usually, if there is a yellow card, your nine probably tries to cover that a little bit more. But, Riley Higgins was able to put that beautiful kick and turn Xavier Rowe backwards, and then, Balin Sullivan scores his fourth try. So very, very clinical. I thought the Hurricanes did very well with that yellow card, because I do agree with Jip. That was probably the turning point in terms of being able to score two tries with Sean being off and exploiting, I guess, the 14 men that the Hurricanes, the Chiefs had on at that time.
Because so often you can see, when teams go down to the yellow card, sometimes they can score points. So you saw it with Moana Pacifico and on Sunday against the Highlanders. You have to change that defensive strategy. They're really flying, trying to pressure those skills, but just the calmness and the composure of all the Hurricanes back line, just to take a few extra steps, really draw that defence out and manipulate them as best as they can. And I just think it was a really calm, composed, from a new combination. Yeah, and one that people were probably expecting the Chiefs to deliver in that final 20.
It's interesting, the last little part of the year, that combination and the Canes has come together. It's come together late, but it's come together quick.
Yeah, and you can just, Ruben Love does have that little bit of it, that energy. It's infectious, isn't it? Even watching on the TV screen, and I think you can see others around him feed off that, and don't underestimate how much confidence that instills in others, because when you look at your game driver and he's, that G'd up and really clear with his comms, you're like, man, we're in control here, and it keeps you, it almost just keeps you a little bit calmer to just focus on your role. It's just just do your job, and that's what they did, and they did it extremely well. I
really enjoyed Ruben Love in terms of the game management side. He's great when he attacks the ball. We've seen him, had massive line breaks, whether it's at fullback or 10, but Jim, I don't know if you saw, but his kicking, not his goal kicking. His goal kicking was great, but his general play kicking, I think there's a couple of times where they kind of weren't going anywhere. They were able to put them under pressure, being able to keep long and being able to find touch, or I guess situationally having a really good understanding of, I guess, putting the Hurricanes in the right positions of the field. And I think he's only going to get better now. Brett Cameron has come back, has played a bit of club, whether they, I think, for me personally, I'd keep Ruben Love there, and that combination with Higgins and Billy Proctor, because it seems to be working. It seems like they've found something the last 2 weeks, but they look like a very different team. And what that's going to do with Ruben Love, he has shown that he can attack the line at speed. That's going to actually open up a lot more for Cam Roigard. Now, I know that Cam has a great running game, and if you're looking at on the weekend, the quick ball jip that the Hurricanes have played with the last couple of weeks is going to open up, I think, for Cam Roigard in this final series if they do make it, because, they were at 0 to 3 seconds, they were at 69%, and the Chiefs were at 60%. So for the continuous weeks, that forward pack is really making some good pace in terms of getting that quick ball for Cam Morgan and that back line that have been able to score points.
Don't underestimate Harkin's ability to kick. That buys time for Love, because you're focusing on a couple of options, and that's made the best of them. But the Canes definitely came in with a clear tactic. Like, it was the most kicks they've had in a game, 36 for over 1,000 metres. They were looking to play at the right end of the park. And I think because they conserved that pack's energy, their conversion rate in the 22 went from 28% last week to 60%. 60%, they probably still want to get that up to that 75, 80, but massive growth. And if you look at it, had they operated at 28% and maybe, chanced their arm rather than taking those 3 penalties at the start of the game, does their confidence dip? And I think that mindset shift of just taking the points early gave them confidence because they were coming away with points, not getting that added frustration of previous weeks.
There's definitely some movers and shakers in this competition. We talk about those 3 teams are all in the top 6, but we saw Moana Pacifica make a big play this week to get themselves into the top 6. Obviously led incredibly by Ardie Savea.
Oh, his stats were just ridiculous. Like, he had over 100 running meters. He did his kick through and scored a try, but he did a tactical kick deep as well. 2 turnovers at the breakdown. Defensively, just so sound. Any sort of loose ball, he'd jump on it. Overthrows at the line out, he would be the one that would expose it. It was just a phenomenal experience. And I know there were a couple of penalties towards the end of the game. And if you listen to his after-match speech, he goes, I want to look at myself there. When the game is on the line, I've got to be better there. And that just shows you the world class. And I suppose that level of intensity that he's operating at, that those are the things he remembers. He didn't want to talk about his try or anything. He's like, we need to be better there. And he's straight into, okay, what do we need to grow and improve in this bye week to be better and take on the Blues in a couple of weeks' time.
They were at key times. And, Brenna, there was interesting at the end there when you thought that after the charge down and the try that Moana Pacifica were going to ice it, like they're going to go for a drop goal or they're going to really lock it down. There was a touch of panic there.
You've got to be able to stay on in terms of, your ball carry, your cleaners, and understanding what's required to slow down in that game. So knowing that they're going to have to play the Blues, they've got derby games, and if they do want to make this quarterfinal or semi-final stage, they're going to have to be able to try and, I guess, have those solutions to try and close out games because, I think they had the right idea. They were trying to start the game. You even saw Ardie Savea not trying to take the contact and be able to get the 2 cleaners to be able to try and to brace and being able to not get ejected. But, Tava Nawai, who is very good at that kind of game, to be able to steal, he was able to do that. So it's a great learning, I think, from Moana to be able to, I guess, try and close out games. You could probably go a little bit more detail what they could have done as forwards there.
I think there's a couple of things. Like, first off is just the composure to use that 5 seconds, at halfback and draw out as much time, get yourself set, ready, identify what threats there are going to be. But and I agree, I think the ball carrier did a great job. You're just holding your feet, you're letting them, you don't want to try and fight through contact and end up on the other side and there's a turnover. But unfortunately what they did is because the ball carrier catches and drew them out, the other 2 players defensively of the Highlanders just took the 2 cleaners out. Like, they were almost just too passive. So you don't want to overachieve there and go past and isolate the player, but you also don't want to get bowled out the back and have, the player land right in front of someone like Tava Nawai. Like, it was the worst thing possible. So those are probably the areas they'll look at because if they are to make it into the finals, these games are going to come down to those moments and the ability to execute there. And they'll look back at it and just feel you could tell they'd trained it. The idea was right. It was just that execution of the cleaners, I think. And I suppose credit to the Highlanders, you could hear them yelling, take out the cleaners, take out the cleaners. So, and they just flew out and won that collision, which presented. And Tava Nawai was just hovering in behind. Like, he was there to do one thing, and it was to get that turnover.
A good time to learn the lesson, I suppose, for them. But also,
come out the right side. I think if they'd lost it, it would have been a brutal, season-defining, really.
But from veteran campaigners, also the way that they were dealing with the ref was a little bit off. They need to learn a lesson there too in order to really get through.
Yeah, and I think they probably felt that, against the Blues in the first game where there was they went in with the same sort of form and hype and it was going to be a tight game, but you almost get the sense with this team when they want it so much, that's when the errors creep into their game. So they've just got to keep that composure. And the beauty is they learnt the hard way against the Blues, but I think they'll take a hell of a lot of understanding around that. One, it's the ref management, but it's just because some of them, it's the senior players, as I was saying before, around that calm composure and that excitement of a Ruben Love, when you see your senior players or leaders, get a bit hot under the collar, it starts to probably rattle you a little bit if you're a younger player. And those sorts of, I suppose, that body language and that mindset and having that calm tone almost just filters through the squad because you're like, okay, we've got it under control. Our big dogs are in charge.
Considering the second half wasn't, probably what they were wanting, because they were highly penalised. They had 11 penalties in that second half. There's a yellow card, but what I loved about it is they just found a way. They stayed in the fight, they stayed in the grind, which I think is a massive pleasing aspect, I think, for Tana and that coaching group, is they were able to stay in it for long periods of time, and especially with what was on the line. You touched on what was on the line in terms of this season-defining game for them, and to be able to get over the line, I think that's going to give them massive confidence. And I think, look, I'm telling you right now, if they continue to keep going how they are, they do a lot of good things. Well, when they get their set piece right, look, they're operating at a high set piece at 91%, which is obviously possibly a bit of an Achilles heel in their lineup throughout the year. If they're able to get that right, their physicality at the break inside the 22, it's really hard to be able to stop. And if they're able to get that kick balance right, which I think they did really well in the first half, the Highlanders had a tactic to be able to play without the ball, and they were patient in terms of being able to have 24 kicks in that first half. If they can have that balance and being able to have their senior leaders make the right decisions and bring that group together in pressure situations, they're going to be a very tough team to beat, Joe.
13 line breaks, over 1,000 metres run, over 1,100 metres kick, that's a good balance. You're not overplaying. You're playing the right parts of the field. Their carry to pass ratio was at 74%. So there's still chance there. Apart from the one error at the start with the offload from Havili that led to a Highlanders try, only 11 turnovers, really accurate. It's just those areas like the penalties of the 14 penalties, 11 in the second half. But I think the most pleasing thing for them, everyone went into that game thinking the line-out's going to be a problem. And they went at 92%, their scrum went at 100%. And surprisingly, it was probably the one area, two areas, and I'll steal this from Jamie Joseph because he was the one who mentioned it at halftime, but the chase line, their kicks were actually really good, the Highlanders, but you saw the intensity of their chase line in the second half really rattled the backfield. There was a lot of errors in the backfield from Moana Pacific, so they will want to tidy up that because other teams will see that. But the line out, there 4 overthrows by the Highlanders, they're normally the best line out in the comp. And then there were a couple of other errors. If they had got their line, it'd be easy to say, it was against the Highlanders, but the Highlanders actually played pretty well, apart from the line out really, and a couple of kick chases. They were really efficient in their own structures. So it was a really, really strong game by both sides, and it was fitting of the occasion because they knew what was on the line.
Yeah. Now, you've talked a little bit in the last few weeks about the tap kicks, and we've seen on the weekend some different options. We've seen tap kicks. We've seen the Hurricanes, go conservative and take shots for goal. Can you elaborate, I suppose, more on those different options and why things are working for Moana Pacifica in the tap kick? Yeah,
I just think they're a great example of playing to their strength. It just looks like their preparation during the week is so disciplined and methodical. And the reason I'll say that, and I'll talk through this first clip, is this first one is against the Highlanders back at Albany, and Ardie Savea is the ball carrier. That is purposeful because you can see everyone tighten because they're like, well, if he's going to have a one-off carry, we're going to need about 3 of them to stop him. So it tightens. But then Matafel is running such a genuine, and I know I get mocked online sometimes for how much I say bodies in motion, but it is a perfect example of bodies in motion. He's a genuine option. Ardie doesn't take the space away, so it draws the defence, and then it isolates one defender, and Tupo Ta'iloa is just hidden in behind, and boom, he just goes straight through untouched. But then if you look at the next example against the Fijian Rua, is a little bit different. Ardie and Miracle Whailangi are now out the back. And so they're purposely there to draw attention because that's the threat. Does exactly that. They pop off a short ball. They get over the game line just short. And then it's the Fijian Drua players have come so far up through the threat of Miracle and Ardie, they then turn their back on them. So that now they can't see the attack structures. Now, this is the growth of Moana Pacifica in this area because it is so easy to just go through this move. Miracle Whailangi sees that they've turned their back. He goes straight in, pick and go, try.
Yeah.
So they're reacting to, they're just reading pitches really well, but they're purposeful. Every person is in a place that it is making the defence thing. And they've scored the most tries from it. As I said, normally their line-out struggles. It didn't struggle on the weekend, but normally it does. And it's just become a real weapon. And you sort of touched on it last week. You can do it from a little bit further out. You kick to the corner and you get to that sort of 15, 20. It's quite hard to maul from there. So if you're around that 15, 20 metre, a tap play, because if you don't get over the try line, you are going to create opportunities, and they've got the attacking threats to finish that off. And you saw that variation of some of their switches down the blind side on the weekend as well. But I just think it's a really exciting play. We've had a lot of questions around innovation and why are we not seeing this. The tackle choices are starting to change around the pick and goes around the try line to get those dropouts. I just think more teams need to look at how they can manipulate defences through this tap play, especially going into the final series, because no one has shown that much other than just a tap and run to set a ruck.
We've talked about it the whole year. If they're close to the line and you're able to pick and go off that, even if you don't score, you're going to get another penalty either way. So you can take a 3 points, you're able to play off an advantage to be able to try and go out wide or being able to have a free swing. So yeah, I think it's been a great work with Moana Pacific. You saw Leinster on the weekend. They did a great tap move, and I guess they've been innovative, been able to use body in motion, animation. So look, I think it's a great way to be able to score tries. And like I said, with the laws and how close you are to the line, you're going to get an advantage if you go multiple phases in that zone as well.
But it's just dropping the egos as well. Like, they know their line-out's not functioning. So they're just doing, that's what I mean. Their whole game is so methodical and disciplined. And even the little grubber from Tuala to Lalomelo, they are just, they're a very well-oiled attacking machine in the 22.
We've had a lot of questions. Let's start with Moana Pacifica, because I think it's really interesting. We talked about Ardie and breakdowns a little bit. A question from Barry Moss on email. Sent this through a few weeks ago. Barry, thanks for your patience. I see attacking teams getting players on the ground ahead of the ball at the breakdown, preventing defensive teams accessing the ball and also taking out players without the ball who are not part of the ruck but close to it. Can you please explain to viewers and myself what the current rules are around preventing defensive players accessing the ball at breakdowns? What can and can't be done, Chip?
Yeah, well, I think even before you get to the breakdown aspect, it's all in the carry. Like, it's so critical in the carry. And I'll give a couple examples. One, get across the gain line. The hunters have to retreat, and then you're going to win that collision and take that space. Once you've taken that space, the ruck is set, ball's up, and you're gone. And on the weekend when Ardie got the turnover off the tip play, Jack Taylor, and this is where it's just the decision-making around it. So when you give a tip, if you get separation from ball carrier to cleaner, you've either got to buy time on the ground by trying to either squeeze it or give a good power play to get time in there, or you've got to keep your feet. Have to keep your feet. And the difference of when the penalty is Tawatavanao is so far in behind the advantage line, all the cleaners of the Highlanders are coming forward to the ball. Ardie had to go back to go round. He had a couple of digs at it, and that's what the penalty is. So first off, carry. You must keep your feet for as long as possible to buy time for your mates to get there from a cleaning point of view. Then second off, anything in and around a metre of a breakdown, removes the body. If you're in there, there's no point. My dad used to say, "You're playing the piano too much, son. You got to get through that breakdown and move some bodies. Don't muck around looking for a pick and go." So I think and Brodie Retallick was the best at it. Like, if you were ever around a breakdown, and probably Tananau Latimer, that era when they won those two titles. If you were in and around that, make sure you're doing something, because they will absolutely smoke you. So just that mindset. But they were crucial in the sense they tackled them. They tackled you, rather than you see some guys, when they don't tackle and they keep driving past a metre, then it's a penalty and you'll lose the ball as well. So there's fine margins. You've got to be really short and sharp and aggressive with any collisions around that from attacking, cleaning sense. But I think anything to do with a turnover starts and finishes with a carry.
Yeah, that's simple. From a halfback's point of view, you obviously see a lot of this out close.
Whether it's a little bit of footwork at the line to be able to get through a little seam, but I think also for the breakdown, the two cleaners are really important, because sometimes there might be that little seam that Jip's touched on. If you do a little tip ball, that ball carrier that had the ball and is giving the tip, he might get blocked or not able to then go to the ruck, because I think winning the race secondly is the biggest thing around there. And like you said, the two cleaners have got to be able to identify the tackler and I guess the guy that's going low and the guy that's going high. So they've got a job to be able to win the race and be fast, really. If you're not fast and you're kind of laboured, then it gives guys like Tawatavanao or Dubusi Karifi a split second, and that's all they need. So ball carrier is the most important thing, but the two people around him are very important, that they've got to win the race and be violent. You've got to be violent. If you're on the piano that Jip is referencing, then it's too much. It's too late. And guys like Dubusi Karifi and Tawatavanao, they'll have a field day. So yeah, that's how I'd see it as a halfback.
And you can't just go sit over it as well. I think like one of the best things Leon McDonald brought into the Blues when he came, if the ball's available, pick it up. Anyone can be half, even if it's just a pick and go another couple more metres to get in behind the advantage line and force. Don't just sit there and wait to absorb some contact. And you see that now and again. It's not just the jackal turnover, the guys that just sit there and almost like sitting ducks, and then they get bowled over on top of their nine, and we're seeing more and more of these barge turnovers as well through that pressure. So ball's available. If no one from the defensive teams around there, get that ball up and go. You know, you can't be waiting around the area because there's heat coming at some stage. No one's leaving breakdowns alone if you're vulnerable.
Yeah, speaking of which, we had another email come through from Stephen Gilliam. He says, look, all season long, the dialogue around the AB's loose forwards has been who should wear the 7 jersey? Has X, Y or Z player done enough? But surely this has been the wrong discussion. We have 2 bolted-on starters in Ardie Savea and Sititi. So I feel like we should be asking who is the right player to complement them? If so, what's the kind of player they pick and who is the best from the current crop? What do you guys think?
It's a hard question to answer.
Yeah. But it's the right question though, isn't it?
It's the right question, but I don't think it's the beauty of squads is they're probably going to have to focus on ability to cover multiple positions. I think Ardie has shown at any level he could go, but you know, he wears 7, but he goes to 8. So exactly the question is like, okay, what's going to work well with that, or make a decision, you know, how you want to play. And it may change from week to week, but I think it was Dalton's best game, like defensively, 22 tackles out of 24, but 3 breakdown turnovers. He was just into everything. And the more the Blues can utilise him on attack, even though they didn't have much possession, you know, he's one of those guys that wins collisions. You know, at international level, he can win collisions. I mean, we've waxed lyrically about Kirifi. Like, I don't know how he can't make the squad. And I've previously said I think, you know, Ardie and Kirifi can play together because I'm not as fixated on lineouts as I once was, because there's just no full lineouts anymore. And if there's a 6, you can sort of, you know, get away with it. And I think Ardie's actually shot enough lineout wise that he can do a job in there.
And at test level, he's quite a bit.
100%. Yeah. So. You know, there's obviously the Blackhead. I can't ignore Jacobson. Like, I think he can play 6, 7, 8, you know, and that ability to swap with Ardie Savea as well. So there's options aplenty, and it's so close because they're all starting to play well. Yeah. So I'll go to my go-to, and I'll just sound like I'm repeating myself, but delivering and setting up in these finals. You need your team in the finals. You really do.
Canes go deep, Kirifi at 7?
Yeah, it's just too early for me. Like I think Kirifi, if you're going on form, is the lead option, but I don't know how they're wanting to play in that loose forward trio.
Yeah. For me personally, I think it's Dalton and Kirifi. I think they're going up against each other for that number 7, Rob, because I think, look, you've got Jacobson, Blackadder, who can cover all multiple positions. You've got Finau there as well, that's always been in that All Black environment. You've got Ardie, and you have to think Wallace with his performances last year and coming back, he'll be there. So I just think that, considering that there's probably a couple of other loose forwards that can carry, we're not even, you know, referencing Peter Lakai as well, who can cover multiple positions. So I just genuinely think it's going to be a toss-up in terms of du Plessis, Kirifi and Dalton Papali'i that the All Blacks, I think, would choose.
du Plessis is an out-and-out 7. Every other player is like a Dalton can play multiple positions, a Jacobson, a Lakai. So I think that's where the squeeze is going to be. I get the feeling, I get the sense, you know, Sam Cane was a genuine out-and-out 7, and you get the feeling that Kirifi is looking to fill that spot as an out-and-out 7 in the squad. So I feel the squeeze is going to become on those I suppose, more versatile players in that position.
Last week, we started our partnership with All Blacks trainer Dr. Nick Gill and his Rugby Ready team. Each week, we'll give away a 4-week training program membership or 1 free training ebook collection. To win for yourself, a family member or a friend, follow Rugby Ready on Instagram. Then direct message ARP, as well as this week's unique entry code, which is TACKLE, and why you're a good choice to be the winner. A huge congratulations to this week's winner, Duno Muglanov. Sorry, Duno, I hope I got that right. Duno's forward 4 weeks of free access to the Rugby Ready Perform membership. He's a 50-year-old Kiwi living in the Czech Republic who played his last game at 40. He'd like to lace up his boots again but wants to be confident he can do it safely. And thanks again to everyone who entered. We loved reading your stories. And if you don't win this round, don't worry. You're still in the running, so keep those amazing submissions coming in, and it could be you that we name this week. This week's prize is the Ultimate Conditioning Bundle, featuring Dr. Nick Gill's 4 essential training resources, an epic toolkit for anyone serious about rugby performance. And remember, even if you don't win, you win, because we'll provide a special ARP link for 75% off your first 4 weeks of the Perform membership, or a discount on the e-book training collection. Now, of course, this week we got the Black Ferns opening their international season as well. The Pac 4 starts. The Black Ferns play Australia, then Canada, then the USA. Australia in Australia to start with. A few weeks ago, we caught up with Black Ferns captain Ruahei Demant to talk a little bit about this big season for them. This kicks off on the way over to England, where they'll play a game, and then, of course, looking to defend their World Cup title, having come off, just like last time, a disappointing year last year. So plenty to chat with Ruahei Demant.
I was reading online that in 2010, you won the Dame Whina Cooper Trophy, which was a national speech competition.
Yeah.
Have you continued this kind of thing into your pre-game speeches? Are you that well prepared? You take it on very seriously?
I guess anyone who's done like speech competitions teaches you a lot of life skills. For me, the one that I kind of have continued to carry through is speaking in front of like large audiences, or speaking in front of cameras as well. That's like, it's different. That competition that I was a part of in that year and throughout all my college years is a really, really famous Māori speech competition called Ngā Manu Kōrero, that started as a way to encourage more young Māori to speak English.
All right.
Yeah, that's actually how the competition started. And as the competition has evolved, there's also a Māori part, so that was the part that I competed in. So throughout all my college years, I competed in the junior Māori and in the senior Māori speeches, where you had a prepared speech that you got up and you spoke about. And then there was also an impromptu speech. So you got 5 minutes to prepare a 3-minute speech.
Wow.
Yeah.
5 minutes.
5 minutes, yeah. So it teaches you lots of things to think on the spot, how to, appeal to your audience, most who are Māori. Yeah. I honestly think, though, that if I didn't do Ngā Manu Kōrero throughout high school, I probably wouldn't have the confidence that I have when I speak in front of, cameras before games or audiences and things like that. Yeah. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I really did. It's a long time ago.
It's obviously served you well. So you would get something thrown at you, like a topic or something, and then you just build that topic.
Yeah, so you get put in a room, there's 3 topics, you choose one of your topics. Someone will come in and say, you got 1 minute left. Then you go onto the stage and you have to speak for a minimum of 2 minutes. And if you don't speak for that, well, everyone just waits for the bell, really. But yeah, and in each region throughout the country, the winner is selected to then go to the national. So it's no use coming second or third. You have to come first to then go to the national. So yeah, it's a very prestigious competition.
So bring that into rugby, and obviously you will have meetings with as senior leadership groups or with coaches, and then it's your job to convey that to a team. Is that something that has come quite easily to you because of that?
Like some of the skills that I did learn throughout that competition have helped me, but for me, and being around professional rugby environments, like you're really fortunate, the people that you get to mix with, the coaches and the specialist coaches that come in to help you develop as a person, as a leader and as a player. A lot of the skills that I learned within those environments at the Blues and at the Black Ferns especially, I've been able to carry those skills and enhance my leadership and even, it's crazy to think now, right? But use those skills and even share them with my family. Even real simple things like goal setting, that we do all the time as athletes, and you think everyone does it. That's not really the case. Working through conflict happens all the time, right, around selection. So just a normal part of your week, and how to navigate that, using those skills from those moments in our test weeks or whatever, and taking them back and sharing them with my family and my friends so that they can understand how to navigate those types of situations and then move forward. I didn't really realize up until very recently how fortunate I was in being around people that have honed those skills and myself being able to learn them until now that I'm a bit older. So
Thinking on the fly though, as a captain,
yeah.
that must be a skill that, because you've learned it over time, has made you a very successful captain in the sense of dealing with referees. You can have as many game plans as you like, but they never seem to come to fruition. So that ability to think on the fly and be able to communicate in a calm manner must have held you in good stead.
I think so, yeah. I also think, like, with my position being a game driver, right, you need to be like a people person. You need to be able to listen, make sure people are heard, but also communicate in a calm way, like you said, in a way that everyone can understand, not just your team, but referees as well. And fortunately, especially in the Black Ferns, I've got Kennedy, you know, we're co-captains, and so we get to bounce off each other. Sometimes we do a bit of a good cop, bad cop thing, you know, all refs are different, hey? You just never know what you're going to get, especially with female refs. Yeah, so.
Who's the bad cop?
Just depends on the day.
Oh, really?
Yeah, game by game, we take it, ref by ref.
You don't want to burn yourself with every ref. If you'll need to swing it around.
Yeah. Is leadership a thing that you work on the same way that you work on your kicking, in the same way that you work on your tackling and those kind of things? You put time aside to work on that?
Oh, absolutely. Especially for myself as I move from like a Blues season into a Black Fern season into a NPC season, you know, like you're always around people with different abilities and different IQs, different leaders as well. And the type of leader that I am, I think I've changed over time because I've been surrounded by people with different skills. I remember the first time I was in the Black Ferns leadership group was Ruby's first year, and Ruby got us to go around and she got us to talk about what our leadership strengths were and what our growth areas were. And I don't know, for myself in that moment, I hadn't actually been in a leadership group. We would kind of address that right at the beginning. So we knew how to collaborate and how to work and draw on different people's strengths. And I actually said it to Ruby the other day. I remember that moment because my growth area was her strength area, which was like managing conflict, navigating, you know, those difficult conversations, especially with teammates who are also like are really good friends, right? So being able to separate that and have those conversations with them. This was like 4 years ago, and I said to her, it's crazy now because that's not really something that I struggle with anymore. But at the time, it was something that gave me anxiety. Like I did not look forward to those conversations, and no one ever does. But being able to see how different teammates, different leaders navigate different areas and drawing on that and kind of molding it to myself and continuing to grow and evolve as a leader, that's probably the one that I've done the most because it's been my hugest growth area.
The thing when you look at leadership groups as a whole, though, what makes a good leader is the vulnerability to say, you know, I'm not great at this, but also that drive or that, I suppose, willingness to learn and grow, isn't it? Because it almost provides space for the team you're trying to lead to step in to say, you don't have to be perfect.
A massive strength that I've learned in the last couple of years is the power of silence and listening, which really allows other teammates that opportunity to have the courage in those moments to say something or reflect on something. You know, if you just kind of keep talking as a leader, whether it's on the field or off the field, you don't really allow space for others to grow. And yeah, because we don't know everything.
That was my work on to just shut up, please. Can other people sort of present into it? But, you know, like when you think about it as a captain, awkward silence almost feels like you're not doing your job, so you'd fill it, but actually doing your job is letting someone else, you know, be vulnerable and come up with that idea or option.
Yeah, so that's kind of finishing up with a question and leaving it to the floor, kind of. That's how that scenario works. Yeah.
Don't look at me.
You just shut up and sit back.
I think it just depends at the moment. Like, for myself, a lot of those, like, you know, you're in a huddle on the field. Mine are mostly on-field ones because of my position. And whenever we finish up, I always want to say something, but I think, nah, because someone else is probably thinking, or someone else might say it, you know? And so, like, usually coaches always say, does anyone have anything to say? And I just stand there in silence and just wait. And usually, eventually, someone perks up. Yeah, and they're usually on the money. Or they'll have a question because they're not clear, right?
Yeah. Let's talk some rugby. It's one of the things about watching you in the last year or so, certainly is you've spent a fair bit of time at 10, a fair bit of time at 12. You know, you've got Kristen Cottrell and Hannah King who've played in different teams in that role, and you've jumped in and out. I'm really keen to hear about how much differently you have to play when you're moving out a spot.
It kind of depends on what the game plan is. So at the Blues, when I play 12 outside Duffy, our attack coach is Carlos. Carlos is like attack game plan. What is definitely different to the attacking game plan that we have in the Black Ferns, especially with my role as a 12. He's pretty keen for us to stay within a certain structure that offers a lot of options. I don't really find myself at first receiver often. The way that we attack tends to be quite narrow and their space opens up on edges. So I'm still in kind of like a distributing role. I do find myself, when I play 12 as opposed to 10, being in a lot more rucks, doing a lot more cleaning, which I don't mind. And probably not kicking as much, just because that option's not usually, that space usually isn't there. What I do enjoy about playing 12 with both teams and outside both Hannah and Duffy is I have more time to see space and have more time to communicate those solutions through. And I know for myself, when I play 10, it makes a big difference when I have a midfield that are constantly communicating where space or what options are opening up for me. And I think because I'm able to play both 10 and 12, and when I'm at 10, I know what I want from my midfielders. And so I try to do that when I'm in the midfield, or when I'm at playing 12, I know what I want from my 10. And so I'm able to get, kind of use my ability of playing both positions to be a bit different.
Yeah.
Do you feel the fact that you've been World Player of the Year, naturally teams, when they're doing their prep, they see you as a threat, probably the major threat. And when you're at 12, it does look like, and it may be through your communication or the fact that teams are rushing your area, that both Chris and Hannah have got that nice running game, and it's actually creating space for them to shine.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I agree.
Is that communicated, or are they just seeing that space because they seem to always rush and put pressure on you, which means you can't get to the outside, but then they get those little
That's right. I think that they have that natural strength within their own game. And I also think the way that a lot of teams are defending now, they're tending to put a lot more line speed pressure on, like across the men's and women's game. So it's kind of, I think it's a bit of a trend at the moment, which is opening up those inside channels,
Also, you've got some amazing wingers outside you at the moment. Like, you got some, even at the Blues, like you got two amazing wingers out at Black Ferns. Getting that ball into space must be so much fun for you.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And those girls, like when we train, they're bloody fast, eh? Not only are they fast, they're strong as well. And so to get a massive bend in the line, even if they're not scoring, and then for us to be able to play on top, that's easy footy.
Got Laurie O'Reilly and a World Cup. So there's a couple of big things to tick off this year. Yeah, when you look at, I suppose, 2024, what are the areas that you guys want to work on the most in order to maintain the Laurie O'Reilly, but then go into that World Cup with all the confidence you need to have a solid crack in it?
Yeah, I think there's a few areas that we need to tidy up. First and foremost is our consistency, like you think of the All Blacks when the All Blacks were really in their prime and you couldn't give them a sniff because they'd put you away.
Yeah.
At the moment, like with our team, we create all these opportunities and we never finish them. We're just so inconsistent. And it's crazy for me to say, because I know that in the past our team has been an attacking team, but I think our attack is the biggest area of growth for those of us who were involved in the last World Cup. Fortunately, there's so much that can happen in a really small amount of time. That Pac 4 series, the Laurie O'Reilly series, before moving into that World Cup will be really important stepping stones for us to kind of gather momentum before we go into that tournament.
It's interesting you say that, because if you do look at the last World Cup, one of the biggest strengths was your patience, to the point that sometimes you would even pick and go from your own 22 to get the pitches you want to then attack.
Yeah.
And then I suppose if you look at now, you're probably creating more opportunities. Is it just that patience and that ability to just take one more ruck to manipulate the defence to a point that you're not under pressure to shovel that last pass?
Yeah, I think it's a few things, and I do definitely think that that's one of them. I think one of the challenges that we have is we don't get a lot of game time. And so for the girls to understand solutions to pictures, right, because that's all you're doing is you're creating pictures and shaping defences, we probably don't get enough time in the saddle to really understand that picking and going narrow is a defence, or, you know, like this type of clean does this to the defence or creates this seam. And I know a massive area that our coaches were helping us with last year was slowing down to then speed back up. At the moment, we're trying to play fast and on top all the time.
Do you think as well, just on that point, there's that patient aspect, but also using Ruby as an example, at their last World Cup, all her work off the ball actually created opportunity for others, and it bought people time to get that pass away. And, you know, if that can be brought back in, that to me is a massive strength, because defenders will see that threat and focus on it, similar to yourself with the Blues, and it creates that time and space you're looking for.
Yeah, with the changes that we're having in our coaching staff and our attacking game plan, I do think that the skills that will be taught to the girls, and hopefully they'll be shown out on the field, will be able to help us enhance shaping defences a lot easier and decluttering people's minds so that there's less to think about and you're just worried about turning that one defender in that moment, or, you know, things like that.
We talk about clutter a lot, even throughout the All Blacks season with new coaches in those first few weeks. Like, it is actually a lot harder than you think to just clear your head of all the information that's going on and go, okay, see the space. Don't overcomplicate it. Where's the space? Let's get the ball there.
Yes. I don't have anything to add there. The nail on the head. Yeah.
Absolutely. But it's an exciting year going into defend a World Cup title.
While it is really exciting, it still feels like there's still a lot of time left before, you know, we get to that stage. We've still got our tests here at home with Pac 4 and Laurie O'Reilly before we kind of get to that stage. And so for me, what I think I'm looking forward to the most before getting to that stage is how our team can grow before we get there.
Promise you a final question, and the final question is World Cup coming up. The selectors come to you, believe it or not, and ask you to make selections. The current player, a former player, and a coach that you want to take on the ride with you. Who would you take with you?
Current player would be Sylvia Brunt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Footwork. She's got a good little kicking game, especially like short kicks. Speed and physicality, both sides of the ball. So I'd take Sylvia. My current past player, I'd take Kench Coxedge. She's got a good pass, man, you know? Yeah, and she was at the top of her game for so long, right up until when she finished playing. Like all good halfbacks say, sometimes they're real hard to control. And sometimes they don't listen. I think that's when she was at her best, because she saw things that others didn't see. Yeah. And she knew how to control the pack. So I'd take her as my past player, and my coach. I said I wasn't going to say him, but I can't think of anyone else. I would take Smithy. Yeah, because everything that was spoken about around shaping defences, he had high standards. If you didn't do something, he'd let you know. Or he'd ask you why you were doing something. He was real big on like players coaching players, especially if they were naturally good at a certain area of the game. And he was fun, you know, like there was time to work hard and then there was time to just relax. Yeah, which is like you got to enjoy the journey out of when you're in these teams. Oh, yeah.
It looks great in a pair of sunglasses too. Those sunglasses.
Yeah, on a Sunday morning, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Ruahei. Really appreciate it. Have a wonderful season ahead.
Thank you so much.
Seriously impressive individual.
Yeah, and you can see why she's such a good leader. She's so people-first focused and methodical in the preparation. And that's what makes good a leader, because she can then present and execute her role for others to follow, but then you also know you've got a captain that's got your back. Yeah. And that's all you want in that leadership role. Do you have my back and can you help me solve my problems? She fits the bill there massively, and extremely impressive young lady.
Yeah, you could just see how she sees the game. Like she sees it very clearly. And she can articulate it very clearly, and you can see how they can help everyone around her, whether she's a 10 or 12.
Yeah, and it's not like we prep them with any questions, you can see that her ability to absorb information and respond quickly and calmly is right there. And that's what you want in a game driver.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, I don't think there's any question that the Black Ferns should beat the Wallaroos. They've never lost them before, so we won't really get into tipping on that. But let's go into the tipping for round 13 of Super Rugby. We have 4 or 5 guys out on top within this tipping comp at the moment. BP 2002 is out the front. We'll see whether you have it in a few weeks when we bring on the winner of the competition, but it's really, really close. Brenna, the Drua versus the Blues. This is a massive game for the Blues, isn't it? And after seeing the draw on the weekend, do you think the Blues are going to go there and get up?
I think they are, considering what's on the line. They know it's a must-win game for them. And look, I know we haven't touched on them too much, but I think Beauden Barrett was tremendous in the way that he played on the weekend. I actually thought it was Rieko Ioane's best game of the year. You've touched on Dalton Jipper, but I thought Rieko, what he did on the weekend, it was his best game of the year. So it's great for the Blues. But I think the Blues do get it done. I think they'll find a way. Physicality-wise, you know that you've got to be able to go do that against the draw. They've done that in the past. A year or two ago, they were able to go over to Fiji and actually comfortably beat the draw over there. So, look, I expect them to do it. It is a little bit cooler. I think it is played a little bit later in the day, which I think is massive in terms of being in Fiji. So, I think the Blues will get it done. But the draw have proved me wrong a lot of times, especially in Fiji.
Yeah, I think every side that's gone over there and won has kicked well and hasn't played too much rugby and backed themselves on their chase line and almost forcing the Drua into their style of play of, offloads and trying to bring the crowd to life. And the Reds kicked 390 metres. Like the Blues against the Force kicked 1,100. So I don't see that changing. I think they'll kick a lot and they'll back their chase line and they'll back to play that arm wrestle style of game and to get a result.
Yeah. Okay, so Blues for both of you. Waratahs at home against the Reds. Reds.
They are inconsistent, but the Tars, again, 19 turnovers. The Brumbies gave them plenty of opportunities, but again, they just couldn't convert it into points. Suolii's a freak. Like, I think we've found his position at fullback, but I just think the Reds will bounce back, and that's what they've shown. They've had a dip in. They had that game. I don't know how they lost it, to be honest, after winning that penalty. But, yeah, I think they'll be smarting with that and get a result.
Yeah, the Tars continue to fall off for you, Brenna?
Yeah, they do. They're probably one of the teams that I guess, we talked about at the start of the year and played really well for the first part. But, yeah, they're kind of just falling back. And, I think they've kind of just had a speed bump. And I don't think they're going to be able to rectify it. So, yeah, we're picking the Reds to, I guess, more so end possibly the Waratah season.
Rightio, brilliant. Force at home against the Brumbies. Brumbies pick up this win. They're well and truly in the running for a top 2 spot.
Especially with that, I think knowing that, they've got to finish top 2, that should be their mindset. But even first, things can go their way, especially with a couple of derbies with the New Zealand teams. They're there or thereabouts for the top spot. So I think the Force, very similar to the Waratahs, they're kind of going backwards. They are a different team at home, but I think with what is on the line, I think the Brumbies would just be a bit too strong. And I've loved the way that Loosie played on the weekend. The way that they attacked, they showed a good brand of footy in terms of in wet weather and difficult conditions. Their attack was really on song. So hopefully they can continue that for the back end of the season and starts with the Force.
A courageous Lolosio is great to see. That's the best he's played. And surprise, surprise, Brumbies scored points because he ran. He had 16 receipts, 10 of them were carries. He was flat and he just took it to the line and that holds defence. That brings Wright and Toole. They've got the pace, they've got the skill, and that sets them up with, and Iki Tau plays that link man so well. So Lolosio, keep running, especially early. That's what he did against Taz. He did it early, and it just drew that defence and there was no way back. But 20 turnovers, I think, in Perth against the Force. They are very disciplined from turnovers. They're very disciplined in their attack. I know they had an off night against the Blues in terms of their execution, but they wouldn't want to give the ball 20 times to the Force. They are still a team to be respected. So I do feel, because they're away from home, Brumbies 1-12.
Right. Okay. Last one. Crusaders versus the Chiefs, the big top of the table clash. Win this game and you have got your leg up.
Yeah, I just think that weekend was so perfect for the Crusaders. They didn't play. They didn't lose top spot. They didn't, in terms of points differential, they're still not top spot, but I think they'll be pretty fresh and there is the element of waiting till teams are selected, but my gut says the Crusaders at home.
The Crusaders basically putting themselves in the position, Bryn, to be the number one in this competition.
Yeah, and I know how important it is to win finals at home. There's obviously a long way to go for that, but yeah, I guess they'll know what's online for them and come in refresh and knowing that the Chiefs had a little bit of a slip up and the Chiefs Crusaders do, whether how you are on the table, and they are obviously the top 2 of the table, they'll know what's on the line. So very small margins, going to be really tight. Breakdown, collision area is going to be massive. But yeah, I think the Crusaders will just put them 1-12.
Brendan, what a turnaround. What a turnaround for the Crusaders. This time last year, you guys were toast. And look at this. Rob Penny, everyone wanted to kick him out of the country.
Yep. Hey, and you guys gave it to me as well.
I'm not sure Walters wanted to kick him out of the country.
You gave it to me. Gave it to me for 12 months. You gave it to me for 12 months.
Oh, mate, he was fairly well looked after. Come on.
Don't. Oh, no. I'll tell you what, it was tough, Chipper. But now look, they're going well. So hopefully they can continue, Chipper, and Ross this week.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with the Crusaders. It's a hell of an achievement, even if they don't win the whole thing, to turn around the way they have. Congratulations to them. Thank you very much for tuning into the show once again. Thank you to Jip, thank you to Bryn, thank you to everyone behind the scenes who puts this together. And of course, thank you to Ashley and Martin Medical Hair Centres for putting the show on for us. So we'll catch you next week. Mā te wā.